this is the file that has the information about starting the main screen. And I'll explain a little bit more about this later. I'll try to go through like the basics of object-oriented programming too in this, although it's no comparison to what you would get in a class. And then this is the layout file, and I'll also go through the basics of XML in this tutorial, although again, like learning HTML beforehand gives you a pretty solid grounding of how to work with XML. So starting with XML. So there's several components to an XML file, which is the layout file of this application. And we're going to be defining the layout of the first screen we see in our app, which is this, and if you go to design, you see the layout right over here. So first, there are things called elements. So elements are the tags you see, like relative layout and text view, and those are objects on the screen. And within elements, there are attributes to these elements, or properties of these elements, such as Android layout height, which is the height of this object, or the padding, or the text within the text view. And that's why when you see we've defined this the text to be hello world, you see hello world within the design, which is the second tab on the bottom, which is the visual view of your layout file for the first screen. So now we're going to edit this to have a message like a text, actually a button and a text box. And to do that, we're going to first reference the text box object, which is called edit text. And we're going to define the width to be match parent, which pretty much means match the screen size. And we're going to define the height to be wrap content. So that means whatever the height is, that is preset in Android, we want that height to exist on the screen. And then after that, we're going to create a button. So we're going to create a button element, and then we're going to define the width of this button. Okay, so now we have defined the width of this button too. And now an important thing for programming in Android is that in order for these objects to be referenced in Java, which we'll do later, you have to give them names or IDs. And to do that, you add to this an Android ID element, which is attribute, which you can name it whatever you want. And the first time you define an ID, you have to do put in plus, you have to do @+ID before you give it the name, and then after that you give the ID name, whatever you want to call it. Okay. All right. So you name this edit text, and this button would be called Android ID @+ID, which is again essential to giving the one of the objects on your screen a name. Okay, button. So are there any questions on this before we move on? And feel free to ask, because I'm going to probably go really quickly because I know this and you guys don't. So, or some you guys don't, and it would, as many more questions, the more you'll get out of this. So. Yeah. So what this app is doing is that we are creating two screens, and you type in text into one screen within the text box. And when you press send, it sends that text to another screen. Any more questions? All right, so moving on, we are now going to remove the text view from this because we do not need that in the first screen, because what we're trying to create is an application with two screens, and all there is in the first screen is the text box and the button. So we save that, and when we render it, we have a text box and a button. Now we want to put text within this button so that the user understands what he's seeing when he's clicking on this button. Like, we don't want just like a random button sitting on the screen. So we put, so we define an attribute, and every attribute is first begins with Android, and then you put like this colon, and then you put like whatever the attribute is. So that's called like a namespace sort of formatting for attributes, which is a technical term. So you could define it to be Android text, and then whatever the text you want within the button to be. So like if you want the text within the button to say send, you'd put send there. And then for the text box, you'd want like something, a way to prompt the user. What do you want to put in this text? Enter a message into this text box, or do something within this text box. And to do that, you'd have to do Android hint, enter a message. So when you look at the design, you now have a text box that says send, and you should have a text view that says hint. But the reason why it's not showing up is that the button is not below the text box right now. And in order to do that, you have to, again, within the button, define an attribute that says that this button should be below the text box. So Android dot layout below at plus ID. Edit text. So now you have a button below the text box. So when you look at the design, you have a text box and you have a send button. So unfortunately, what I've heard is that we're running short on time. So this is a tutorial that requires 1.5 hours. So are there any questions so far before I wrap it up? Yes?
So the language that you're using, it is Java, is that correct?
Yes, they use Java and they use XML to do the UI.
Okay. So is it a certain flavor of Java, or is it just straight out of the box Java?
It is, so the thing is that you've downloaded, there's an API that comes with it. So even though you've learned, it is straight out of the box Java, but the thing is that there's a lot of different functions and stuff you have to know from that API in order to really understand it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How can they actually follow through this example at home and complete the tutorial?
Yeah, so there is a website that is for beginners, and it is this one right over here. You can take it down, and it is the exact same thing that I'm running through. Building your first app, developer.android.com, and then the rest of the link. Yeah?
What if you want to build iOS apps?
So I'm not an iOS coder, so I'm the wrong person to ask about that. But that requires Objective-C and also Xcode, which is an entirely different software. But I think Android apps are awesome. It's 80% of the world market share, so it is a big thing to be coding for. But yeah, iOS apps are really cool. So if you do want to learn more about iOS apps, there's probably an Apple developers website, and there are some people. Do you go to Redwood by any chance? Are you going to Saratoga High next year? Okay. But there are some people that would be able to help you at Saratoga High if you do go there. Any more questions?
Aren't non-object oriented languages better for kids to learn?
So Apple is, like I know this about Apple, that they're using Swift, which is scripting, which is less OP than Android. So I guess it's becoming more common to learn scripting and stuff like that. But I think object-oriented programming is the basis of like true programming. So if you really want to get yourself into programming, I'd recommend like trying to get into object-oriented programming as soon as possible, although it's a lot harder, so yeah. So if you just search up the Android developers website, like I could do that right now. Connected to it. And then you clicked on develop, gateway time, okay. Okay, so a connection issue, but if you clicked on develop and then you clicked on training, you'd find this website which pretty much teaches you how to make this. Now, it's important to know that you have to know some fundamentals to really understand what they're saying here, like programming fundamentals. Yeah? Android developers website. And it should be the first result. Okay, so, yeah.
Okay, let's thank Aditya for coming. So I think you can send me that website URL, and then I'll post it on the Facebook group and the Google group. So thank you all for coming today. We'll have the class next week, same time, 3 p.m. It might be in the smaller room in this over here, but I'll send out an email on more details. Okay, thank you.
My system wasn't working. I was trying to get it up the whole time. You didn't understand what I'm saying? No, you didn't. I don't care.
parents were rude. I don't think they should have asked questions. It was not for parents. No, I don't think it was. Well, here's your paper. I completely disagree. I don't think it should be. But good luck. Thank you for noticing.
If they are, I'll send the link out.
Thanks for listening. go see him.
Yeah.
There, do you want me? Turn off?
Yeah, turn it on.